Uh, so today's class will cover the basics of creating effective resumes. Before we start, a few simple reminders. First, please keep your audio and video off. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat. The presenter will be stopping throughout the class to answer questions, and he will check the chat for questions. Also, if you have any technical problems, let us know that in the chat as well, and Angelina and I will do our best to help you. Lastly, this program will be recorded. If you do not wish to appear on the recording, either on voice or video, please make sure that your audio and video are disabled. Interactions via chat will not appear on the recording. And so with that, let me introduce our presenter. Joel Jinks works in HR for the City of San Antonio. He has also worked as the executive recruiter for the city, and he has taught these resume classes many, many times. So we're very fortunate to have him. Join me in welcoming Joel Jinks.
Thank you, Freddie, for having me here. I'm really excited to teach this class. Like you said, I have taught this class many, many times, but I never get tired of it because I think what we're talking about is so critical and so important to you. I always tell people that the quickest way to change someone's life is to get them a new job, right? I can improve your bank account. I can give you more time with your family. I can improve your marriage. I can do a lot of great things for you just by getting you a new job. And so what we're going to talk about today is some really simple things that most people should know, but just don't, about how to develop a resume that works and that is effective. Just real quickly to introduce me, as Freddie was saying, I've been with the city of San Antonio for 15 years. During that time, I spent 5 years as the city's executive recruiter, hiring everything from the new city manager to the police chief to the airport director to everything across the city. I have probably my time at the city hired 150 different people. I've probably sat through 3, 4, 500 interviews. I've probably seen 20 to 30,000 resumes during that time. So I always like to tell those folks that I'm teaching that that I'm giving you the perspective of the other guy, the person on the other side of the table, the person who is done hiring, and trying to help you understand what's going through my mind, what my thought process is as I'm hiring, so that you can help take advantage of that to get a job. So with that in mind, let's talk really quickly about resume writing. And the question I always like to ask, go ahead and put your answer into the chat, is when it comes to getting a job, what is more important? Your diploma, or what sheet of paper is the most important is the question. Your diploma or your resume when it comes to getting a job? Which of the two do you think is more important? Go ahead and type your answer into the chat window. Your diploma or your resume? Right? So we got one answer for resume. See some other answers for resume. Yeah, right? Think about that. But then think about, and the answer is yes, you're correct. The resume is more important. Yeah, right? I have hired people from schools I never heard of with great resumes. Meanwhile, I have rejected people from great schools with terrible resumes, right? So your resume is absolutely more important than the degree that you have. However, if you think about it, how much time do people spend getting a diploma, right? How many hundreds, thousands of hours do they spend getting a diploma, and thousands of dollars that they spend getting a diploma? And yet when it comes time to do their resume, what do? 20 minutes before the job posting closes, they're scrambling to put a resume together and put it in, right? So now I'm not saying that a resume should require as much money or as much thought or as much effort as getting a diploma. I'm just saying I think it deserves a little more attention. Given how important it is in helping you to get a job, it probably is worth it to spend at least a couple hours on putting together a high quality resume that really speaks to you and what you're capable of doing. So let's just talk right off the bat. What is a resume, right? What are we trying to accomplish with the resume? Number one, it should be succinct, right? You are not writing the next great American novel. You are simply presenting a demonstration of your accomplishments, right? And that is a really key phrase you're going to hear me say a lot tonight. You are demonstrating your accomplishments, right? We're not going to talk to them about, just rote job descriptions. We want them to know what we've actually done, right? And it's important to remember that your resume is also a living document, right? The best way to think of a resume is to think of it as a diary, right? It's the kind of thing that you need to update. If you don't think about your resume until 10 years into your job, well, by the time you get around to doing your resume, you're going to forget a lot of the things that you've done, that you've accomplished during those 10 years. So something you do want to consistently update, similar to a diary, right? The purpose of a resume is not to get the job. The purpose of the resume is to get the interview, right? That's what we're trying to accomplish. Get the attention of the hiring managers, demonstrate our accomplishments as quickly as we can, and get to that interview. So the analogy I found the most helpful in understanding what a resume is and what should be in a resume and how it should be formatted is to think of a resume like a grocery store, right? And if I were to ask you, what is it that makes a good grocery store? Think of the local HEB that you love, right? What is it that makes that grocery store good? I'll tell you one thing. And this is, you may not think about this, but it'll make sense to you when I explain it to you. Number one, a good grocery store fills every shelf. Remember during, the beginning of the pandemic when there was no toilet paper to be found. Remember during the snowpocalypse when, when it was hard to find in and the shelves were empty. That does not create a good shopping environment, right? If I go into the store and I can't find what I want, then that store is not helpful to me, right? So a good grocery store to really make money, a good grocery store to really make a profit has to maximize every inch of shelf space. They've got to fill everything up because every inch that is not filled is something that they could have sold, but now they can't because they didn't leave the space for it. So they have to maximize every shelf space, every bit of space, but they can't put too much in, right? If the shelves are too close together and it starts to get claustrophobic and it creates an unpleasant shopping experience, then it will hurt them as well. They have to find that perfect balance between filling every shelf but making it easy to flow and navigate through the store, right? So one, fill every shelf. Two, it has to have what the customer wants. You need to know who's shopping there, right? You were going to sell something different at a grocery store in Japan than you would sell in a grocery store in Mexico because you have two different customer bases. Certainly there's crossover and some things that will be the same, but there's a lot of things that will be very different. You have to know and understand your customer to make an effective store that's going to make you a profit. Right. So again, know your customer. And then finally, any good grocery store has to be organized and easy to navigate. Right. Somebody walking into your grocery store for the first time should be able to find everything that they're looking for without having to just struggle or without having to ask for help. Right. That is what a good grocery store is. So let's compare then a good grocery store then to what a good resume is. A good resume fills every line, every inch of space on your resume, even if it's empty, even if there's white space, matters. It has to be used up to drive home the point of how great and qualified you are for this job, right? We got to fill every shelf of that resume. Next, it's got to have what the employer is looking for. The good news for almost every job you're going to apply for is it's almost all done electronically, and it's going to be you're going to be applying to a specific job posting, right? You're not just emailing a resume to a company and hoping they notice you. You're applying to a specific job, and that job position will come with a job description, right? That is where the employer is telling you, here's what I'm looking for. Here's my shopping list. Here's the items I want to have in my next employee. And you need to make sure your resume shows them what they're looking for, that their shopping list is checked off with all the things, and you're going to show them clearly and easy to find right there in your resume. And then finally, like any good grocery store, it's just easy to get around. Right? Your eye naturally flows to the parts that matter. Your eye is not overwhelmed with huge, long paragraphs of text, right? It's broken up with bullets and with headers and with a good masthead. And these are the things that really make a good resume stand out, right? So think of that then. Next time you're doing a resume, again, think of a grocery store. Get what the customer wants in a place that they can find it quickly and easily. That is what we're looking for with our resume. Okay, so let's talk about some of the basics of our grocery stores. Talk some of the basics of the design that make for a successful resume. There's all kinds of different designs of resumes. You'll hop on, you'll see all kinds of templates for them out there. And there's no really one that's good or bad as long as they follow some key basic criteria, right? So first of all, every resume starts with the masthead, right? That is the part at the top that includes your name. Right? The masthead of your resume should appear on every page. That's your first tip, right? A lot of times you'll get a resume where they have their name on the first page, but on the second page, there's no name. But what happens when I'm printing up 150 resumes, right? It's really easy for one page to get orphaned, isn't it? It's really easy for one page to sort of wander off or to get stuck behind another sheet of paper. And then if I don't have a name on that sheet of paper, I don't know who it belongs to. So keep that in mind. Right, make sure that your masthead appears on every page. And in addition, it's your letterhead. This is your brand. This is your logo. right? So it shouldn't just appear on the top of your resume. It should appear on the top of your cover letter. If they request references, it should appear on the top of your list of references. It should be there every time every time they have a sheet of paper from you, your masthead should be there, right? So one, should appear on every page. Two, it should be large and easy to read, right? We don't want it to dominate the space. We'll talk about that a little bit here, but it should be just easy to read, where I know I can see your name, I can see, the basic information about you that I need to know. And what should be in the masthead, right? If you open up a newspaper, right, San Antonio Express News, and it has usually the issue number, and it'll have the location, it'll have the date, right? The key information about that newspaper. Well, your masthead at the top of your resume, there are some key information it needs to have in it. It needs to have your name, it needs to have your email address, and it needs to have a cell phone number, or at least the best number to get a hold of you. Notice I did not say it needs your physical address, right? Due to, sensitivity concerns with privacy, your address is just not necessary anymore in a masthead or really anywhere in your resume. No one is going to mail you anything. Everything is going to be done electronically. So there's no need to include a physical address anymore. It can be useful, particularly for applying to a local job, to include the city that you live in. So I might put, San Antonio, Texas in my masthead, but that's it. That's as much, information I'm going to give them about where I actually live. Beyond that, I just need to give them enough information where they can contact me easily. Now, additional to this, I don't need to give them multiple phone numbers. I'll see people give me like a home phone and a cell phone. Just give me the number you want me to call. Don't confuse me. Don't give me 3 different numbers. Just give me the one you want, short and sweet. Okay, so let's look at some examples of a good versus a bad masthead. Right off the top with Joanna Smith, let's look at her masthead. First of all, is it simple and easy to read? No. The font face on this is making it very difficult for my eye to read and understand what's happening. The colors on it, and while they may look good on her individual resume, they aren't going to print out very well, right? It's going to print. This is going to print in black and white, so it'll come out kind of as a grayscale. It's not going to look nearly as good, right? She's providing a physical address that I don't need inside of there. That's just is not a good masthead. And in addition to that, look at all the space that her masthead is taking up, right? Her masthead is taking up 4 shelves, right? Everything underneath everything, under one section underneath the other section, underneath the other section. That is 4 shelves that she is using up unnecessarily on the top of her masthead. It's not a good use of space. It's not easy to read, and it provides more content than I need to know, right? So let's look at an okay masthead right there with Anita Job, right? She's maybe providing me more information than I need, but at least it's easy to read, right? At least I have the content that I need. It's easy to read. It's not a problem. But if you look at it, look at all the space she's taking up, right? It's not particularly well designed, and it's taking up a ton of space. That's 4 shelves, right? Everything, one line after the other that she's using at the top of her paper that could be used later in her resume to describe the things she's accomplished that qualify her for the job. So the better one right here down at the very bottom, Ross Reynolds, right? So he's giving us, you see how it's maximizing that space? But instead of stacking things on top of each other, he's spreading them out linearly, right? So it's got his name, easy to read, simple font, the city where they live in, cell phone number, email address, and then a great addition now, it would be your LinkedIn URL. I will tell you this, if you can get them to your LinkedIn, you're winning, right? Because if they're getting them to your LinkedIn, they are investing in you. They want to learn more, and that is always going to help you in the long run. So putting in a LinkedIn URL can be a really helpful way of getting that interview. Okay, so let's talk about the font face. First, remember, the font you use matters. But we're not trying to get cutesy. What we're trying to do is maximize the space and get them to read what I'm saying quickly and easily, right? So when it comes to font, there's some really simple ones that I like. I'm a big fan of using Garamond because, believe it or not, Garamond is actually just a little bit smaller than all the other font faces. It's just a little bit more condensed and a little bit thinner, which means with Garamond, you can usually earn, just by using one switch to a simple font, I can usually buy myself 1 or 2 shelves. Right? I can get 1 or 2 lines of space now in my resume that I can use to, explain more of my qualifications. But any of these font faces are good. The key is it should be simple and easy to read, right? Next, don't make your font too small. It should never be smaller than 10.5 in Microsoft Word, right? If it's getting too small and I'm struggling to see it, then it's too small. I get it, the temptation to make it smaller, you can put more in there. If it's too small though, right? That's that grocery store analogy. If the things are too far away, if I can't read the signs of the aisles that I'm in, then I'm not, then it's not a positive shopping experience, right? The flip side, I can't make the font too big, because if the font is too big, then I'm taking up space that could be used for other things that are more important, right? So too big of a font wastes that space. And then finally, never use more than 2 font types in a resume. I think it's totally appropriate to use one font type, like say a Century Gothic or a Calibri, as one of my section heads, and then use a different font like a Georgia or a Garamond as my body text. I think it's okay to have that, create that contrast using 2 different font types, but never use more than 2 font types. All right, so let's talk then about some basic designs. And I've put up here a sample of what a good resume would look like, right? And this is a resume for Jane Doe here. We can see that's a simple, attractive masthead, right? She's got all the information there in the masthead that we need to have. Doesn't take up a ton of space. She starts with a great professional summary. And if you look at it, think of it, that white space, right? The space in between the paragraphs. Those are like the aisles of your grocery store. Those make your eye so easy for your eye to flow and move through the resume. It's so easy to find things, right? She's got the information that we want, right? So she's using that white space really, really well. But she's also putting in those, she's using bullets instead of paragraphs. A paragraph, now you notice she may start in that professional profile with a short paragraph, but she keeps it very, very short and then goes straight to bullets. Bullets are a great way of getting getting my eyes, the employer's eyes, right onto the part that matters most to you. So always use that white space and always use those bullets instead of paragraphs. You know, a paragraph just becomes overwhelming when it's too long. And as the hiring manager, I've got 150 of these that I need to go through in the next 2 or 3 hours. I just don't have time to read a dense paragraph. I just don't have time for it. So make sure that you're always using those bullets. And next, that mix between bold and italics is a great way of creating contrast that helps, you know, what you're trying to do is create a repeating pattern that teaches me how to read your resume in a millisecond. You notice, for example, all their section heads are in that gray bar in all caps in bold, right? And then each of their job positions, they're giving you the job title in bold, right? What are they doing? They're giving, by using these repeating patterns, by switching between all caps and between bold and not bold and italics, they are teaching me the reader how to find information that matters most to me quickly and easily. And they're also breaking up that text and helping it, making it easy for my eye to find where I need to be, to look around the resume, right? So these are just some basic ideas to keep in mind. There are a lot of different ways of designing a resume. I've seen some that sort of stack things into columns where you've got your work history over here and your education over here. And that's okay, as long as it's maximizing the space, getting the information out there that the customer is looking for, and it's using just some of these basic design principles, bullets and paragraphs, bold, you know, some contrast to just help make it attractive and easy for my eye to flow around. Now, I will say there's one exception to this. Sometimes you get some really crazy off the wall creative resumes. I'm actually not a fan of those kinds of off the wall crazy resumes, usually because they're just harder to read. Right? As somebody who's short on time with each resume, I don't have the time to pour through some crazy, kooky, creative resume. I can't do it. And with one exception, if you are applying for a job in a creative industry, you're applying for a job as a graphic designer, right? The resume is a chance for you to show what you're capable of, right? When creativity is what they're hiring, then it makes sense to be creative with your resume. But if they're not hiring for you for your creativity, if they're hiring you for your skills, experience, and qualification, then it's best to stick to a simple, plain resume that gets the information out to them as quickly and as easily as possible. The best resume, to be honest, is the resume they don't even really notice, right? It's the resume that just gives them the information they need quickly and easily so they can move on to deciding whether they want to bring you in for an interview or not. Okay, so let's talk about what really, really matters when it comes to resume, and that is the content of the resume. And I will tell you this, as somebody who's been hiring for, you know, well over a decade, this is the part that we all seem to miss the most. This is the part that we just don't seem to understand when it comes to resume. Easily 95% of the resumes that I receive simply don't understand what they're actually is the content that's actually supposed to be in them. And as a result, they fail. They just do not succeed in doing what they intended to do, right? And the first key concept to remember when it comes to getting my attention, when it comes to getting that interview, you have 7 seconds to impress me. It's like riding a bull. You got 7 seconds to impress me. And so you really have short time. Now, if you impress me, that doesn't mean you're going to get an interview. It doesn't mean I'm only going to look for 7 seconds and then toss it to the side, yes or no. What's going to happen is if I like what I see, I will invest more time. So you got 7 seconds to grab my attention, show me you're qualified for this position. And if you do, then I will invest more time in reading more about what is in your resume and diving more into your experience, education, knowledge, right? But you've only got such short time. You've got to maximize it, which is why it's so important to have that good, simple, easy to read, attractive resume to get my eyes right to what matters the first. So to help me, the hiring manager, find what matters most, we recommend, or I recommend, using what's called the inverted pyramid. This is a concept used in journalism to help reporters understand how they should write their news article. But the basic idea being, when you're writing a newspaper article, you don't actually know how much you're supposed to write, right? You write it, and then the editor will go in, fit it into the newspaper, and cut it off. So the way they write a newspaper story is to make it less and less important with each paragraph, because you never know where they're going to cut you off. So you've got to get the meat out in that first paragraph, and each paragraph after that becomes less and less important so that the editor can cut it off at any point, right? That is called the inverted pyramid. You have to put the most important information up front, the least important information later. So knowing that, then with your own resume, you have to put what matters most right there at the top. The worst thing you can do when you're building your resume is to bury the good news, to take this amazing experience you've had, to make this great, academic accomplishment, and to take that and to bury it at the back of page 2, right? That doesn't help you get the job. You need to put what matters to the employer right there at the top. If you go into the grocery store, what do? Right? That middle shelf, right? That's where they make their most money, right? That's where the items with the highest, right, profit margin are always that middle shelf. The cheap stuff's on the top or on the bottom, right? Because they know your eye is going to see that naturally, and you're going to buy from what you can naturally see. Your resume is the same way. You need to put what matters at eye level, where I can see it quickly and easily and grab it. So this applies to really every basic concept of your resume. For example, let's say you're coming right out of school. Should your school experience go first, or your college or your work experience go first? Well, that just depends on the job you're applying for. If you're applying for a job in an academic realm, right, that requires a high level of education, then maybe it's good to start with your education. If you're applying for most jobs that really where your experience matters, you should probably start with your experience, right? And even when it comes to describing, individual points within your resume, I would want to start with the degree I got and then list the school I got it from second. I would want to list the job title I have and then the organization I work for second, thinking what matters most to the employer, right? That is what really matters. So every part of it, every bullet, everything should be thinking to yourself, I want to put the most important stuff above the stuff that's less important. It should get less and less important as you go. Okay, so this is the most important thing we're going to talk about today. This is where most people mess up on their resumes. This is the concept that people just don't understand. And when it comes to your resume, right, the worst mistake you can make is to tell me what you can do. I need you to show me what you can do, and you show me what you're capable of by using past experiences and accomplishments to prove it, right? It is not about telling me. Most resumes that I get are simply a description of the job. I answer customer phone calls, and I manage special projects, and I do special analysis, and I answer the phones, and I manage filing. Okay, that's great, but anybody can do that. I want to know what you did. What did you accomplish with the position that you had? And if you're not telling me that with your resume, then your resume has failed, because I need you to show me what you've accomplished. And the quick and easiest way to show me what you've accomplished is to quantify your achievement wherever possible. In other words, put numbers to what you've done, right? Let me give you when you're writing this, first of all, as you're writing these accomplishments, you want to write them in what I call the did X resulting in Y formula, right? That is, I implemented a just-in-time inventory methodology, right? That's the I did X resulting in, right, that reduced costs by 26%, right? You see the value of quantifying? That number really jumps out at you when you're the hiring manager. Ooh, 26%, right? You don't know if that number is good or not, but you see a number, right? And so it matters to you when you see that number. So I did X resulting in Y. That is the perfect bullet in your resume. And you want as many of those in there as you possibly can. It is not enough. And one mistake that people make with their resumes is they start to get humble. This is not a place to be humble. You want to brag. You want to brag about everything you possibly can. The sun rises and falls because of you in your resume. You need to get as much in there that you can properly and honestly take credit for into your resume, right? But you need to brag. And the best way to brag is results, right? George Bush once said, if you've done it, it ain't bragging, right? So if you've done it, if you created this result, get it into your resume. A lot of people will give you the X. They'll say, well, I implemented a just-in-time methodology. That's great. But what they won't give me is what it resulted in, right? Give me that result as much as you possibly can. And if you can't quantify the result, let's say you implemented a brand new filing system that made it so much easier to file and find files in your organization, right? Then just say resulting in a more efficient filing system, you see, right? So even if I can't quantify it, I can still give a result for the things that I accomplished. So let me give you an example to really help drive this point home. Let's say you are hiring a brand new used car salesman, right? And you get one resume that says that they are an expert in providing customer service support. Great, right? But the first thing that I say in my brain is prove it. Like, how do I know you're an expert in providing customer service support? How can you prove it, right? But let's say guy number two gives you a resume, or person number two gives you a resume that says, I implemented a new customer service program that increased satisfaction by 20%, right? Who are you going to hire? Well, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? We're all going to hire person number two, because this person has not just said that they're good at something, they have proven it. And with this one bullet, what are they showing us? They're showing us they're excellent salesmen. They're showing us that they're innovative. They're showing us that they're capable of following through in a program. And they're showing us that they're able to create results with one simple bullet. They're teaching us all those different things about themselves, right? That is the difference between telling someone you can do something and showing them you can do something. That is what your resume needs to be from top to bottom, right? And how do you do this? I found there's one really simple question you can ask yourself that makes it very, very easy to create an accomplishment-based resume. And that question is, what 2 to 3 things are you most proud of? For every job, for every entry, for your education, ask yourself that question. What 2 or 3 things am I most proud of? If you're doing that, right? If you can answer that question, if I pick up your resume and I can look at it and go, oh, I can see what she's proud of. I can see what she's accomplished. That resume has succeeded. That resume, in fact, is better already than 95% of the resumes that I just got by simply answering those 2 to 3 simple questions. I found how I can talk to somebody from any background, whether they've been working in fast food or they've been the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I can talk to them, ask them this simple question, and it always helps them frame their resume in a much better way. Talk to me about what you're proud of, because if you can do that, if you can answer that question, then you can get the job. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, I don't know, it's a hard question to answer. Well, then start doing things at work that you're proud of, right? Try to finding ways of do things better. Try to, it's getting that employee of the month. It's doing those things that show that you're awesome at your job, because I tell you, the best way to get a job tomorrow is to be awesome at your job today, right? Okay. Let's talk about some just key things to keep in mind when it comes to a resume. Number one, when it comes to that phrasing of a resume, keep it punchy, right? You want to use as few words as possible to get the meaning across, right? It's that, developed, created, managed, it's keep it punchy so that no one understands it's getting as much content in as few words as possible. I personally struggle and agonize over my own resume, because every time I see it, every time I open it up, I find a new way of making it more punchy, of kind of condensing these ideas into smaller and fewer words. Because remember, if you can communicate the same idea in 100 words instead of 500 words, you just saved yourself all that space that you can use to communicate other accomplishments. Remember, no pronouns. You don't want to say I did, I created, I built. That I pronoun, it just starts to repeat. It starts to look kind of funny after a while. So no pronouns. And remember those strong verbs, right? Created, developed, built, managed, assisted, right? You want each of your bullets to start with one of those strong verbs to help them understand what you did. Now, one question I often get is, well, what if I was a part of a team that did something? How can I take credit for what the team did? Yes, just be clear that you're part of a team, right? So you can say something like, I was a member of a team that produced this result. right? That's totally okay. And then a good hiring manager will just ask you later, well, what was your role in that team, right? But it's okay to take credit for the things that your team accomplished, right? And then finally, brag, 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 right? Make sure that you are putting your accomplishments into your resume. If you don't brag now, you will not get the chance to. And now I've noticed a lot of people times when they're applying for a job within their own organization, they're applying for promotion, they really struggle bragging because they don't want to sound like they're taking credit for everything. That's where it's just important to remind them that you did this as a part of a team and be prepared to explain, what your role was. Okay. Let's talk about things not to put in your resume. The first and the most obvious for me is always those buzzwords. It's those jargony words that may be familiar to you in your industry, but that may not be familiar to everyone. And I've noticed this in particular with folks coming out of the military. We love our veterans. They've done incredible things during their military service, but often it's written in a jargon that's almost impossible for someone like me to understand. Right. So make sure to avoid those buzzwords as much as possible. Avoid those acronyms that you understand, but I may not. Right. Make sure that you're translating this into a language that anyone, regardless of background or experience, can pick up and understand. Right. Certainly, you're going to have to include things like, the different code languages that you may understand. The things that are very specific to your industry, you'll want to put those in there. I'm not saying not to include, very specific components of your industry, but just be really cautious with using buzzwords. If there's another word that can be used that anybody can understand, use that word, right? Another common thing that we see in objective statement or in resumes are objective statements. This was really common in the 80s when you applied for a job by literally mailing a resume to a company, and the objective statement told the company, here's the kind of job I'm applying for. Here's what I'm hoping to achieve with this resume. I'm applying for an entry-level position in your accounting department, right? That is what that is what the purpose of an objective statement was. However, they're still there. For some reason, they're still lingering these 20 years later. Even though I know what job you're applying for, I know what the objective of your resume is, I still get these objective statements. And most objective statements just kind of sound like a mishmash of buzzwords. It's things like, I'm seeking to find a position in a fast-paced work environment where I can use my outside-the-box thinking abilities to provide, triple bottom line support. This is that kind of stuff that just doesn't make sense. They all just sound like just cliches, and they're not helpful, and it's just a total waste of shelf space. So there's no need for an objective statement. I know what your objective is. Your objective is to get the job. That's why you're applying. Next, be really careful with too much personal information, right? I don't, like what we already talked about, I don't need your address. I don't need to know anything about, big mistakes that you've made. I don't need to know. And certainly if asked, you will have to answer the question about maybe any past criminal history, but you only need to answer the question that is asked, right? And you don't need to give too much personal information. I've gotten resumes that talk about, marriage and family. I've gotten resumes that talk about hobbies and how they like long walks on the beach and how, it's not a dating profile, it's a resume. So avoid too much personal information. And with that leads us into hobbies, right? Hobbies are great, and that can be a good way of fleshing out, who you are as a person, which is why sort of they've been encouraged in the past. The problem is, for me personally, I'd rather have an accomplishment taking up that space than a hobby. Now, the one exception is if you can include a hobby that is also an accomplishment, that is great. So it's not enough to say, oh, I enjoy running. Okay. But if you can say, I completed the rock and roll marathon, now we're talking, right? That is a hobby. This is an accomplishment that is worth putting into my resume. All right, some other thoughts on your resume. Number one, get a professional email address, right? The Turtle Lava, that is a real email address I got from a real person applying for a real professional job, right? It is really hard to take someone seriously when their email address is Turtle Lava, right? So just make sure it's, email addresses are free. So it's literally just your name at email.com. Simple as that. Now, it's true, you may have plenty of other people that share your name. So it could be your name and a number. That's totally fine. But just make sure it's your name at email.com, and then we're good to go, right? So keep it simple. The simpler, the better. In fact, I recommend creating a separate email address for when you're applying for jobs, right? You could create an outlook.com email address or a separate Gmail or something, because then it makes it easier to track your responses, and it can help you avoid getting some junk mail, right? So when you're sending, when you're attaching an email, or when you're sending it, when you're attaching a resume or sending it as an email, always attach it as a PDF, right? And everything now allows you to save as a PDF, right? So something you have to print to PDF is one way to do it, but save it as a PDF, because When I get it as a PDF, it will open up on my computer and it will show exactly the way you wanted me to see it. If you send it to me as a Word document, I may not have the font face that you used, in which case it'll substitute another font and it'll start to get real wacky. In other ways, sometimes I've seen people will send me their resume in a Word document, and they'll have their track changes turned on, and it'll show me all the changes that they made to the resume, all the things that they cut out and all the things they deleted. And that's just kind of a peek behind the curtain that can be a little bit embarrassing. You don't want to do that either. So just send it to me as a PDF. That is the way to do it. Next, if you are actually meeting someone in person, if you're going to a job fair, nice that we can actually start thinking about doing stuff in person again, right? If you're actually meeting someone in person, that nice paper still matters, right? Don't just print it on regular old computer paper. Get a little bit thicker, a little bit nicer paper. It's a human being on the other side of that table that you're going to be handing that resume to, and they're tactile people. And when they get a resume on nicer paper, it's just this really simple, quick, cheap way of standing out from the rest of the crowd. And then finally, your resume should never, ever, ever, ever be longer than 2 pages, right? I don't care if you're, Bill Gates. I'm not reading your resume if it's more than 2 pages. You've got to get your point across in those 2 pages. That may mean for some of the content that you're creating, you've really got to shrink it. It may mean that you can't show all your accomplishments for a job that's older. That's okay, right? Use the real estate that matters on the most recent jobs you've had. Really drive home the accomplishments that matter, that are really relevant to the job that you're applying for, right? And if you need to cut other places, then you need to cut other places, but never longer than 2 pages. So one thing I would consider adding, this is sort of a new trend that we're seeing in resumes that I think is really, really helpful at giving you a chance to put your best foot forward right at the beginning, is a professional summary, right? This replaces that objective statement. We're going to put it right at the top of my resume, literally right after the masthead. And sort of this is my way of telling the hiring manager, me in 30 seconds. If you hire me, this is what you're getting. These are the features, right? These are the features of this product. This is what you get by hiring me. Right. And honestly, this is something that probably changes with every job that you're applying to. It's something you really want to customize, like the rest of your resume, but really, really this part in particular to the job you're applying for. So they know, hey, this is who they are. These are the features that the hiring manager, are looking for. Right. And this is an example I've got here. So it's saying I'm an enthusiastic government leader with 10 years of progressively responsible experience for large and small municipalities. Right. So it's a quick background. Here's who I am. Right, I have more than 7 years experience in budget development, team leadership, talent acquisition for the nation's 7th largest city. You see how I quantified things? Nation's 7th largest city, right? So not just saying the city of San Antonio, but saying the nation's 7th largest city. Ooh, that starts to pop, doesn't it? Right? And then demonstrated expertise and organizational turnaround. This is my way of saying these are the things that I can do that are relevant to the job that I'm applying for, right? So you can see in a really quick, it's sort of that, some people call this like an elevator speech, right? I've got 30 seconds to get your attention, help you understand who I am, what I'm all about, and here it is, right? So that is, now you'll notice I broke one rule with this. The first rule was you're not allowed to use a pronoun, but you notice I use the word I in this paragraph. I've written these a bunch of different ways, and I found that it just sounds better when I say I, right? The whole paragraph just starts to flow a little better when I start with the word I. So this is the one exception, the one place you're allowed to use pronouns. The rest of your resume won't need them. Okay, so now we're about to get a little more interactive. And I want you all to post some comments here into the comment window. And you're going to help me, right? You're the new experts now on resume writing. You're going to help me understand everything that's wrong with this resume. Are you ready? Okay, let's start at the top, right? What is wrong with John Q. College graduates masthead? The font. Okay, and what's wrong with the font? Yeah, exactly. The font is almost impossible to read, right? It looks cool, right? Yeah, that's awesome. But maybe that's, if you want to get a tattoo, that's cool. But it's a very hard font to read, right? What else is wrong with his masthead? Is it missing anything? Yeah, too many font styles. That is a great example. He's using way too many font styles. He got too fancy with his Microsoft Word. Okay, but it's just right there in that masthead. What is he missing? Yeah, his phone number. He knows he doesn't have an area code, right? It's a simple little thing, but that tiny little omission. Imagine applying for 100 different jobs and not getting any phone calls, and you're wondering what's wrong, and you could have gotten these jobs, but all because you forgot to include an area code, right? Yeah, those are tiny little things that can really, really cost you. I once got a resume from a really, really smart, capable woman, who was applying for a very advanced position with the city of San Antonio. And I had a really good feeling she could get the job. The one problem is she never included even a phone number or an email address. She included no contact information in her application. It was bizarre, but I had no way of actually contacting her. Let's look at his email addresses. What's wrong with his email address? What's wrong with being the believer at Gmail? Yes, it's not professional, right? He can easily find a Gmail account or an Outlook.com account and use that. Yeah, it's not a professional email. Okay, let's talk about right here, the objective statement. 1, should it even exist at all? Should he include an objective statement? No, he shouldn't. Exactly. Instead of an objective statement, imagine how much better it would be if he included a professional summary. Like, yeah, exactly. That professional summary saying, here's what I am, here's what I'm all about, here's what I do, right? Let's talk about a photo. Now, photos are something that are very, very common everywhere else in the world except the United States of America, right? In Europe, it is expected that your resume will include a picture in it. We do not do that in the United States of America for a lot of reasons, right? It sets you up as the employee for discrimination issues, right? Because by including a photo, I'm providing them with my age, my gender, my race, all things that are unnecessary in the hiring process, right? But the biggest issue with the photo, yeah, right. 1, photos are wacky, right? It's really hard sometimes to get a good photo. And number 2, look at all the space it's taking up. Look at the shelves that are being used on that silly mustached photo, right? That is just not a good use of space. All right, let's talk about his education, right? What's wrong? Well, first of all, remember, we're talking about inverted pyramid, putting things that matter the most. Is he doing a good job following the inverted pyramid? What order should these things go in instead? Right? We're going to get rid of the objective statement. Then what should probably go next? After his objective statement. Yeah, his experience should probably go next, right? Then probably his education, right? And his hobbies, should his hobbies even be in there? No, we've talked about that, shouldn't be in there, right? Does anybody notice a problem right there with the phrase state university? What's wrong with it? Yeah, he misspelled it, right? There's no quicker way to get your resume sort of put to the bottom of the pile than by misspelling something, especially misspelling university, right? This is your chance to show you're educated, not doing a great job there. You'll notice he also includes his GPA. We haven't talked about this, but your GPA is not something you should include unless it is specifically requested. Unless the hiring company says, we need your GPA, sure, fine, then get it. Otherwise, don't get it. And I know all of you who got straight A's are like, but I have a 4.0, Joe. I want to put my 4.0 in there. Even then, don't include it, right? There's an old saying that the world is run by C students, right? And there's actually some truth to it, right? So when somebody like, a C and a B student like me sees somebody with a 4.0, what am I thinking? I'm thinking, oh, well, you're just you're just a bookworm. You didn't have to work through school like I did. And that's what people like me think. And you don't want that, right? Nobody ever got, there's an old saying that what do you call a guy who graduates medical school with C's? Doctor, right? So your GPA really just doesn't matter. Yeah, you notice that he didn't lose his degree or his major. He said he got a master's. Well, a master's in what? Right? A master's in culinary arts. Like I literally don't know what he got a master's in. So that's a real key thing, right? The whole hobbies thing we just want to get rid of. Okay, then let's talk about his experience. And this is what's most glaring. If I were to ask you the question, what is he most proud of? Does he answer that question? No, he doesn't. He doesn't tell me what he's most proud of. Even look at the dates. What is wrong with his dates? May through June. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with saying May through June? Yeah, no year. Was that for 1 month? Was that for a year and a month? Was it for 5 years? Like without the date on there, I don't know actually how long he was there, right? And then finally, right, when he actually gets to his job description, he answered phones, made copies, got coffee and stuff, right? So he's probably being honest, and he's telling us what he did, but he's not giving us any accomplishments, right? Now, one last question. How is his use of white space? right? Is he using that white space well? What's wrong with it? Because there's a lot of white space. That's the good news. But what's wrong with it? Yes, it's too much. You notice that big hole in the middle, right? There's that big white hole in the middle, right? That's where my eye wants to go, right? My eye likes to go to the center of things, but it can't because there's this big hole in the middle. And so it's just not a good use of shelf space. So let's go through the grocery store analogy really quick one more time. Is he maximizing shelf space? Absolutely not, right? His aisles, right? The white space makes absolutely no sense. It's like having a grocery store with a big hole in the middle of it, right? It makes no sense, right? Is he giving the customer what they're looking for? Nope, absolutely not. He's not doing it away. And is it organized and easy to find things? No, it is not, right? So he is failing as his grocery store. Now let's take the same guy, John Q. college graduate. We're going to make his resume better, right? So let's take a look at what he can do really quickly to improve things. Okay, good looking masthead, right? Good looking masthead, and he's maximizing his space. Maybe we can take his address out, but that's really not a deal breaker, right? Now he's starting with his education, which may make sense for someone coming right out of school. If you're coming right out of school and you're saying to yourself, the thing that sets me apart from the people around me is not my experience, it's my education, then yeah, okay, maybe we'll start with your education. Otherwise, though, once you've been working for a couple of years, yeah, that education is going to drop to the bottom and experience is going to rise to the top, right? We can maybe even add a professional summary, but overall, it's good looking, right? It's easy to find things. Let's look at his actual experience. And this I really like things like, let's look at the last bullet in this first one. My favorite one is this first bullet underneath community services intern, right there down at the bottom. It says he's responsible for organization and implementation of the 115th annual Corn Fest. And he increased attendance over the previous year by 25%. You see that? He's telling me, it's that did X resulting in Y. Here's what I did, and here's the result I created, right? If you are the hiring manager and you get this resume, the clouds will part, angels will sing, a beam of light will shine down on it because it is so unique in that it is easy to find things, it's easy to navigate, and it is so result oriented, right? That is what makes it so good. So as a hiring manager, if you get this, I guarantee this is somebody who's going to get called back for an interview, right? Even if you look at them thinking, oh man, I don't know if they have enough experience, you're going to say to yourself, but look even with the little experience that they have, look at what they've accomplished. Look at what they were able to do, right? So that is, I believe, the presentation. But we do have a solid 10 minutes, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions you may have about the resume, about resume writing. Go ahead and type them into the chat while we're here talking. If anything popped up that you didn't quite understand, or if you have any specific questions maybe about a scenario that you're dealing with, please type into the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer them for you right now. No questions too hard. You can't really stump me. Okay, Angelina, let's hear your common scenario. I'm excited to hear about it. Sure, yeah. Go ahead and unmute, Angelina. That'd be fine with me.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure since we're
No, go
recording.
ahead.
The scenario is being in a work environment where I often have folks come in to ask questions about their resume, but I feel like we spend a lot of time, or they kind of get stumped on the resume building software versus just creating a resume from scratch. And I've always been the person to create a resume just on a Word document and then manipulating it at the end, versus creating the beautiful resume on from one of the
templates,
the software, or like even like Google Resume, they have some really nice looking stuff. So how would you speak to this as far as like just kind of coaching folks like, hey, it doesn't really need to be too beautiful at first?
I would coach them based on their technical ability. If you are not super good with Microsoft Word, and you struggle with formatting and just basic Word, those templates can be really helpful. They ask you questions, you just type in the information, it does all the formatting for you. And so in that case, yes, just make sure you find a template that follows the rules we've talked about. But if you are comfortable with Word, I've always found that creating them on my own is easier. One, because they are simple. At the end of the day, it's just paragraphs and bullets, right? Bold, italics. They're not super complicated. In fact, the less complicated, the better. So if you can avoid using one of the templates, I would, but I wouldn't see a template as being all bad as long as you're using a template that's effective. So let's I got a couple of questions came in here. So how can I make an impressive resume if I've been a stay-at-home mom for 8 years? That is such a good common question. And let's just deal with the elephant in the room right out the gate. You've been a stay-at-home mom for 8 years, right? So there's going to be that hole in your resume, and we can't cover it up. We can't make it go away, and that is okay. Just take it for what it is, right? Number one, what we can do is focus on the experience you do have, right? Make sure that your experience section still includes things that you've done and things that you're proud of, right? It may have been 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. That's okay, right? If you've done it, it ain't bragging. Get it into that resume, right? The next thing to think about is this can be a great chance to focus on some volunteer opportunities. Maybe even volunteering in the PTA, maybe doing other things to sort of keep yourself busy. A volunteer section can be a great way of almost, treating it like an experience section that you can put into your resume, that you can sort of talk about some of the things that you've done, that you've helped and assisted with, that show that even though you've been a stay-at-home mom, that you've still been very, very active in volunteering and helping people outside of yourself. It's a shame that we can't just treat being a stay-at-home mom as a job, right? My wife is a stay-at-home mom. I'd love for her. I'm sure her resume would be far more impressive than mine if we treated being a stay-at-home mom as like a full-time job. And frankly, we should. But the key is to take what you have done during your time at home and translate that into experiences that match up to things that I'm looking for as the hiring manager. The next thing you can do, and I think this is helpful, is when you do a cover letter or you do like a resume or an email to a hiring manager, just tackle the issue head on. Say things like, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 8 years, but I'm really excited to get into the workplace. I'm very excited to be, start working my career again. You can tackle it head on and just show them, get that elephant in the room out of the way. Yep, I'm coming back to the workforce. Yeah, I don't have the experience maybe some of the other people in the last 8 years, but here's what I'm awesome at doing. Here's what I'm good at. Here's what I have been doing, and here's what I'm capable of. Right? Okay. Next question. Let's see. I've been retired for about 10 years. How to present this in a positive way, knowing my retirement may not be connected to my prior employment. Okay, so this is similar to being that stay-at-home mom. You've been retired for 10 years. You're looking coming back into the workforce. So let's make sure that our resume does include the accomplishments that you have, right? It does include things that you have maybe been doing volunteer-wise or whatnot during the last 10 years, right? And then in that cover letter or email, we're going to tackle it head on. We're going to say, I've been retired for 10 years, but I'm really excited about getting into the workplace, right? That positivity can really matter, right? This is where I've been, but this is where I'm looking to go. Positive, 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 right? So this is where I am. I'm trying to get into the workplace. This is what I'm hoping to do. What to write after the masthead without any experience over a decade after graduation? So what section should you start with? You still want to start with your experience section. Actually, number one, start with a professional summary. To all the questions you've asked about, both for those who retired coming back and for those who were stay-at-home moms, that professional summary can be a really good way of bridging that gap, right? A really good way of putting all your experience, the things you're capable of, the things that you've done right there in my face before I even figure out the fact that you have been hired and you haven't been working for 8 or 10 years, right? It's a way of making me fall in love with you before I maybe find out some of the other issues that we have to deal with moving forward, right? So what to write after your masthead without any experience over a decade after graduation, just put what you can, right? That's the thing with the resume. It's the best that we can put forward. So if your most recent experience was 10 years ago, then we're going to start with experience. We're going to put those dates. It'll be 10 years ago. And we'll just address in our professional summary and or in our cover letter why it's been 10 years since we've worked. And okay, now what if you had a medical issue? This is a very different, we got to be careful with this one because we don't want to scare the hiring manager away. And frankly, it's none of their business, right? They don't need to know that you've had a medical issue. You just want to address this as well as you possibly can. So if you've been out for the last 2 years because of a medical issue, we're going to treat this as positive, 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 right? And that is, I'm just going to say, I've been out of work for the last 2 years, but I'm really positive and excited to get back into the workforce. And I don't need to necessarily address why, but simply say, I'm ready to get back into the workforce and ready to get going. The problem is if I give them too much information about my medical issue, it may scare them away. And that's the last thing that I want to do, right? If I'm qualified for the job, I'm qualified for the job. and they should be focusing on my qualifications, not some of these other things that don't matter as much, right? So how do you feel about jobs that want to include salaries on your resume? It could be uncomfortable or seem odd to include. That is such a great question. I feel like I could teach a whole class on just how to handle this question, right? So the problem with a hiring manager requesting a salary is that it puts you at a disadvantage when it comes to negotiating your salary later on, right? Because when they ask the salary, it kind of puts a pressure on you to go downward with your salary request, right? Right? If they say, what salary do you want for this position? And I feel like I'm bargaining against other people who are also applying, and they're going to hire the person who wants the least, right? Or even worse, let's say I put, I'm willing to work for 60,000, and they were willing to offer me 70,000. Well, now they're going to offer me 60, right? Because I said I was willing to work at that. So first of all, when it comes to this question, I actually don't answer it if I don't have to. If it's not a required question, if I don't have to answer it to get the job, then I just don't. I'll literally leave that field blank if I can. Now, if it is absolutely required to submit the position, what I will put then is something like, I will say, my current salary is X, and I'm willing to consider a comprehensive a compensation package that helps me, move forward from there. Right? Does that make sense? So it's my way, rather than saying I want 70,000 for this job, not a penny less. Right? It's my way of saying, well, here's what I'm earning today, but I'm looking at considering a full benefits package, a full compensation package that helps me grow from the salary that I have today. We often overlook the value of the entire compensation package. It's really easy to just sort of stare at that salary line. Well, I was making 55, now I'm only making 60. Sure, you may be making $5,000 more, but if your health insurance costs you an extra $700 a month, right, you're actually losing money now, right? So really got to have a good understanding of the full comp package when you're applying to a position and when they're making you a position offer, which is why if I really do have to give them an answer on the salary, I'll say, this is what I'm currently making, but I'm looking to grow my salary considering the entire compensation package. Because that also tells them, hey, I'm willing to play, right? I'm willing to, I'm not just so focused on the bottom line about the compensation. I'm willing to consider things like additional leave and additional retirement benefits and additional health benefits. It lets them know I'm willing, I'm open, I'm willing to hear you out, right? So that's kind of it. So we are up against 7 o'clock. I just want to thank everyone so much for being a part of this class. I love sharing this information with everyone. And I really hope you've all gained something from it, very, very specific. I always like to make myself very open to anybody who needs particular help. So this is my email address. Feel free to email me if you have any questions that maybe I didn't answer today. I'd be happy to take some time to talk to you, and we can work through your issue individually together. So that's my email address, joel.jenks@sanantonio.gov. And that's it for me. Freddie, back to you.
Well, thanks, Joel. I enjoyed that very much. It was a great presentation, and I think all of us learned quite a bit. Is there a way to get your presentation, or would it be possible to email it to me and I'll send it out?
I'd be happy to. Yeah, I'd be happy to email it to you, and they can certainly go to you for the presentation, or they can reach out to me personally. I'll send it to them.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Well,
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate Angelina being here as well.
Thank you, Angelina.
Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Have good luck.